With a final, desperate thrust, a young warrior drives his glowing sword through a colossal, skull-helmed beast. Nearby, the wounded Demon King watches in disbelief, unable to fathom his defeat at the hands of a complete unknown. He stands over the fallen monarch, his green cloak crackling with residual power. Introducing himself as Clay, he claims to be nothing more than a simple villager who merely carried luggage for the hero's party. With a ground-shaking thud, the massive beast collapses, its reign of terror finally over. Clay stands alone amidst the wreckage, the silent victor of a legendary battle. From his broken position, the dying Demon King begins to chuckle, finding the situation absurdly amusing. To think his end would come not from a holy knight, but from a mere commoner. He looks up at the young warrior with a bloody grin, asking if he has any final words. Clay, his face splattered with grime and eyes cold as ice, retorts by asking if the Demon King is the one ready for his end. Understanding the finality of the moment, Clay raises his sword. A single swift motion brings the blade down, silencing the Demon King forever, while a blonde-haired man watches the scene in horror. The blonde man surveys the utter destruction, his eyes landing on the massive remains of the fallen beast. He looks toward Clay, who stands tall amidst the carnage, and mutters in pure disbelief. He calls out to Clay, questioning if he truly defeated the Demon King alone. Clay turns with a relieved smile, happy to see Yuka is finally awake, but as he relaxes, the sword in his hand begins to fracture. Yuka's eyes widen in shock as he recognizes the weapon, the holy sword, Aaron's veil. Clay apologizes for the damage, explaining that his own blade broke, so he borrowed Yuka's without asking. This revelation leaves Yuka stunned. Only those of the Altonia royal bloodline should be able to even touch that sword. A startling thought crosses his mind. Could this luggage carrier be a secret royal, or even his own brother? As Clay attempts to return the blade, it flares with violent divine energy, searing his flesh. Clay recoils in agony, clutching his scorched fingers, while Yuka watches the reaction in surprise. Staring at the glowing relic, Yuka whispers its name, Aaron's veil. He concludes that the sword's violent rejection must be a safeguard against the Demon King's lingering aura, while Clay nurses his throbbing hand. Despite the pain, Clay's expression brightens as he reflects on their progress. 3 of the 4 heavenly kings, the Demon King's elite generals, have already been wiped out. Yuka gazes into the distance, noting that the greatest threat was always the Demon King's unique skill. With the king dead, the demonic army is effectively finished. That terrifying skill was known as Ruler of Demons, a power that allowed the king to command and empower an endless legion of monsters. Standing in the ruins of the Dark Fortress, the weight of their victory finally sinks in. Yuka declares that with the Ruler of Demons gone and no successor in sight, their triumph is absolute. Clay listens in silence, his expression unreadable as he stares out over the desolate, war-torn landscape. Yuka breaks the heavy mood with a cheerful stretch, remarking that the end of their journey feels strangely anticlimactic. Clay immediately snaps back, reminding him that they both nearly died multiple times. Yuka smiles, conceding the point, but reminds Clay that he is the one who ultimately struck the killing blow. The direct praise leaves the humble warrior visibly flustered. Yuka's smile softens as he recalls fighting for Clay to join the party despite his advisor's protests. They had mocked the idea of bringing a villager, and even Yuka had his doubts, but looking at the man kneeling before him now, those doubts are gone. He looks at his companion and confirms that the prophecy was right all along. Clay is the true hero, but the exhausted man can only stammer in disbelief, wondering how someone like him could be the chosen one. Ignoring the shock, Yuka cheerfully suggests that Clay will be hailed as a legend upon their return, advising him to prepare a victory speech. He mentions they need to wake Laura and Teritas first, while a flustered Clay insists he's doing no such thing. Days after the Demon King's fall, the party arrives at a massive fortress. From the high balcony, King Zalgodo of Altonia announces the arrival of Prince Yuka and his brave companions, praising their noble triumph. Watching from the shadows, Prime Minister G. Conrad smirks, finding it hard to believe this ragtag group actually managed to topple the Demon King. Inside the throne room, King Zalgotho declares that every member of the hero's party deserves a legendary reward. Before him, the four companions kneel in deep reverence. As they bow, Conrad whispers to Clay, implying that Flora and Teritas must have done all the heavy lifting. He warns that if Prince Yuka takes the credit, the entire line of succession is in jeopardy, leaving Clay visibly shaken. Internally, the Prime Minister plots his next move. Since no one knows who truly dealt the final blow, he plans to strip Yuka of the achievement and attribute it to his companions instead. Elsewhere, Tareed admits with a sheepish smile that he was knocked out instantly. Flora agrees, confessing she was completely useless during the final showdown with the Demon King. A knight in pristine white armor kneels before the throne to deliver the official report. He prepares to name the savior of humanity, but as he speaks, the king and prime minister's faces twist in pure shock. The knight's voice booms, declaring Prince Yuka as the one who slew the beast. The court is sent into a frenzy of confusion, while Clay, the king, and the others stare back with stunned expressions. The knight doubles down, claiming he witnessed Yuka destroy the Demon King with his own eyes. He points to the corpse, noting it was slain by the holy sword, Aaron's veil, a blade only those of royal blood can wield, leaving Yuka himself utterly baffled. This blatant lie sends Flora into a righteous fury. She screams at the knight, demanding to know why he's lying when Clay was the real victor. Yuka quickly intervenes, begging her to calm down and sensing a deeper scheme at play. Still fuming, Yuka turns to Clay with a forced laugh, telling him it's shameful to push his own glory onto the prince. He admits the lie is dangerous, but insists there must be a reason, while Clay remains eerily silent. Finally, Clay breaks his silence. He explains that given Duke Conrad's treachery, it's better for the world to believe Yuka is the hero. Both Yuka and Flora are stunned by the mention of the Duke's involvement. Sage Teritas interjects with a knowing grin, asking Clay to explain his reasoning. He's already deduced the truth. Clay orchestrated this lie to protect the prince's claim to the throne. He breaks down the political landscape, revealing that Duke Conrad holds the real power. Currently, Yuka's elder brother, Prince Alton, is the primary heir to the kingdom. Teritas points out that with this legendary feat attached to his name, Yuka's path to the throne is now secured, a development that Duke Conrad will absolutely despise. He explains to a shell-shocked Yuka that if Clay were named the victor, the Duke would have used it to humiliate the prince and destroy his standing in the royal court. Clay reveals his true heart. If he took the credit, the Duke would just exploit it for himself. But in Yuka's hands, this victory is a weapon to change the world. He smiles, believing Yuka is the only one who can bring true peace to the land. Seeing his selfless resolve, Flora's anger vanishes instantly. She pledges her full support to the prince, and Yuka, moved by the gesture, vows to do his best before asking Clay what his next move will be. He begins to explain that there is a specific goal he has been itching to pursue for some time. Regarding his future, he declares his intent to pioneer the borderlands, a demonic territory known as the most perilous place on Earth. The declaration leaves his companions speechless, with Teritus's eyes widening in pure disbelief as he shouts the word, "Borderlands!" Clay stands firm, acknowledging the gravity of his choice and the fact that the frontier is overrun by lethal demons. Teritus then recalls an ancient law. Anyone who successfully tames that land earns total ownership of it, an offer standing only because the kingdom abandoned the region long ago. He gestures toward a map of the Albania kingdom, noting that despite the law, every previous attempt has ended in failure. From across the room, Clay calmly confirms that this ancient rule is still very much in effect. With a casual smile, Clay downplays the ambition, claiming he just wants a place where everyone can finally relax away from the kingdom's chaos. Flora realizes his true aim is to carve out his own sovereign territory, while Clay adds that his unique abilities are perfectly suited for such a brutal environment. Back inside the castle, the companions discuss his inevitable departure. Flora, resigned to his will, admits she won't stand in his way, while Yuka vows his eternal support, and Teritus struggles with the looming loneliness. Visibly moved by their loyalty, Clay feels a reassuring hand on his shoulder as Teritus offers two firm, supportive pats. This quiet moment is shattered when officials storm the room, summoning Lord Yuka for international negotiations, Lady Flora for a sacred ritual, and Lord Teritus for the Magic Academy. Suddenly, the three heroes are buried under the weight of their new responsibilities. As they are dragged away, Clay muses on how exhausting it is to be a hero. Flora sighs about the endless paperwork, while Yuka accepts that their lives are about to get incredibly busy from here on out. With his friends occupied, Clay turns and exits the castle alone, casting one final glance back before crossing the massive, silent courtyard. As he walks, he reflects on his status as a mere villager whose quest has concluded. He wonders if he should have given a proper farewell, but realizes they are all far too busy with their new roles to dwell on the past. Memories of their journey flood his mind. The laughter, the campfires, and the grueling training. A sharp pang of loneliness hits him as he realizes how quickly those days of togetherness have slipped into the distant past. He stops in an open field with a somber expression, completely unaware that Flora, Yuka, and Teritus are standing just a few paces behind him, watching his every move. Teritus notices the sadness in Clay's eyes, and when Clay finally spins around in shock, he stammers, asking why they followed him. Teritus simply smiles, telling him there was no way they'd let him leave without a proper send-off. Before he can even process it, Flora and Teritus rush forward, pulling him into a powerful, emotional embrace. Yuka watches the reunion with a stunned expression as the group clings to a tearful Clay. Clay returns the embrace, a bittersweet smile crossing his face as he thanks his comrades and prays for their safety in the days to come. His friends watch him depart, their faces a complex mix of sorrow and quiet respect for the path he's chosen. With the final goodbyes exchanged, he turns and begins his solitary trek, leaving the capital behind as the others wave from the distant road. His journey takes him through treacherous mountain passes and into the heart of the deep woods, traveling by day and carving out a camp under the stars. He calculates his position, realizing the borderlands are still 2 days away, when a piercing scream shatters the forest's silence. He spots a covered wagon, besieged by a pack of monstrous wolves, with a lone youth desperately guarding the terrified horses. Charging into the fray, he recognizes the beasts as forest wolves and begins channeling lethal wind energy into his palm. With a sharp shout, he unleashes a barrage of invisible wind blades that tear through the pack with lethal precision. The slaughter ends in a heartbeat, leaving the driver in stunned silence as Clay lands gracefully and checks for survivors. With the threat neutralized and the travelers safe, the wagon's wheels begin to churn once more along the forest path. As the wagon rumbles along the country road, The young driver offers his heartfelt thanks, though Clay insists he's just happy for the ride. The merchant introduces himself as Glans from Emeru village, alongside his daughter Rita, who offers her own polite gratitude. Glans explains they're returning from a supply run to the capital and questions why Clay is wandering such a remote region. Clay reveals he has business in the borderlands and asks for intel, sparking a look of pure shock from the merchant and his daughter. The merchant simply smiles, suggesting it's better for Clay to witness the truth himself, leaving the young warrior deeply confused. Meanwhile, in a lavish palace, a man with tied-back hair approaches Prince Yuka, who remains unfazed while calmly sipping tea. Setting down his cup with a placid smile, the prince acknowledges the rarity of the visit and asks what brings him here. Duke Conrad steps forward to offer congratulations for slaying the Demon King, hailing Yuka as a savior before his tone turns cold. His friendly mask slips, replaced by a predatory gaze, as he prepares to drop a bombshell on the prince. He asks the unthinkable: did Yuka truly defeat the Demon King? The prince's calm facade cracks as he demands to know the meaning of the question. Yuka points to the appraisal, stating the Demon King's corpse bore the unmistakable marks of his holy sword, a fact Conrad doesn't deny. However, the Duke flashes a confident smirk, questioning if that body actually belonged to the Demon King at all. Turning away, he notes that since no one has ever seen the Demon King's face, the prince could have easily slaughtered a random traveler. Facing Yuka again, with a patronizing tone, he insists that if the prince is truly a hero, he must provide undeniable proof of his power. The prince bristles at the demand, questioning how he could possibly prove his worth, or if he's expected to manifest another Demon King. Duke Conrad calmly proposes a mock battle against 3 S-rank adventurers. He enthusiastically suggests a grand spectacle for the entire city to witness. After all, S-rank adventurers possess the power to topple entire armies, so defeating 3 of them should be a simple feat for a true hero. However, his internal thoughts reveal a desperate truth. He knows a crushing defeat would destroy his reputation, admitting that Conrad's deduction is spot on. He lacks the power to ever defeat the Demon King. Despite the fear, the prince's resolve hardens. He declares that he inherited his hero status from a friend and won't be intimidated by such a transparent tactic, firmly accepting the challenge. Meanwhile, the long journey finally ends as Glans announces their arrival. He tells Clay to see the destination for himself, leaving the boy paralyzed in utter disbelief at the sight. He stares at a colossal twisted mass of blackened thorny vines, a pulsating structure radiating pure corrupting energy. He can only stammer, his mind failing to process the nightmare before him. He had spent the journey in a simple wagon, traveling along a dirt path through open fields, only to be led directly to the edge of the unknown. The road terminates abruptly at the mouth of a dark, twisted forest. A bead of sweat rolls down his temple as he realizes exactly where he is, the dreaded borderlands. His initial shock transforms into a grim smile as he realizes his task is to pioneer these corrupted lands. A thrill of anticipation surges through him, while a small, dark figure watches silently from the gnarled trees. Clay enters Emeru village with his companions, observing the rustic buildings and noting just how dangerously close they are to the borderlands. With the sun setting, Glenn suggests they wait until morning to venture further. He asks if there's a place for Clay to stay for the month, though Clay doubts such a place exists. Seizing the moment, Rita brightly offers her own home. Clay is instantly flustered at the thought of staying with a girl his age, but she insists there's nothing to worry about. Clay looks to Glans for approval, who reassures him that this is the least they can do for saving their lives. Speechless and flustered, Clay sees the hopeful anticipation in Rita's eyes. Under the twilight sky, he finally relents and accepts the offer, though he clarifies it's only a temporary arrangement until he can build his own home. The following morning, Clay awakens in a simple bed, shaking off the remnants of sleep. After ditching his travel cloak, he heads downstairs to find Rita already hard at work in the kitchen. She greets him with a massive breakfast as a token of her gratitude. Clay is stunned by the spread, finding the freshly harvested potatoes to be incredibly delicious. As he eats, he confidently notes that since she's seen him in action, she must recognize his true strength. A flash of his devastating magic crosses his mind. Rita acknowledges his power is impressive, while Glenn adds that the magic he used is unlike anything he has ever witnessed. Glance asks if he possesses some legendary skill seeds, but with a mysterious smile, Clay simply denies it. He reveals to the stunned pair that his only skill seeds are appraisal and mimicry. Glance reacts with shock, remembering that these divine gifts from the gods are usually identified at the Holy Church. He explains that while seeds act as a guide to one's true calling, be it a swordsman or a mage, intense training is still the key to blossoming. Glance notes that while combat seeds forge powerful warriors, Clay's specific abilities are considered remarkably common. Clay offers a faint smile, admitting that while possessing 2 seeds is rare, his particular set doesn't exactly scream legendary hero. Rita's eyes widen as she realizes he achieved such strength without a combat talent, making his power even more terrifyingly impressive. He recalls sage Teritas' wisdom, life isn't dictated by a seed, but by the bonds you forge with the people you meet. This memory brings a soft, contemplative smile to his face. Rita adds that for most, their seeds don't define their jobs. They only reveal potential, leaving the rest up to the individual. The air hangs heavy with the realization that even with common skills, one can carve a legendary path through sheer grit. With the talk over, they part ways, and Clay sets his sights on scouting the dangerous borderlands. Suddenly, his path is blocked by a hostile villager who barks at him, calling him a worthless outsider. The young man sneers, claiming that even if the leaders accept him, the rest of the village never will, demanding he leave immediately. Clay absorbs the verbal assault, his expression remaining eerily calm and unbothered. As the villager storms off with one final threat, Clay acknowledges the raw animosity radiating from the man. He understands their fear of the unknown borderlands and resolves to slowly bridge the gap between him and his new neighbors. With his resolve hardened, he turns his back on the village and disappears into the shadows of the nearby forest. He ventures deeper into the woods, noting the peaceful atmosphere, but something feels off about this ordinary forest. Suddenly, his instincts scream at him, and he grinds to a dead halt. He gazes upon a desolate wasteland, where the plants are withered by a lethal concentration of ambient mana that could kill a normal person instantly. Resolved to test its true power, he crosses the threshold into the mana-saturated territory. Instantly, an oppressive force slams into him, the sheer weight of the mana crushing in from all sides. Pushing deeper, the atmosphere shifts, and he realizes this is no walk in the park. Suddenly, a sharp creak from a nearby tree catches his attention. His gaze sharpens. Focusing his senses, he activates his appraisal skill to expose the hidden threat. The skill reveals a pack of goblins with B+ combat ratings, low intelligence, and a terrifyingly high fertility rate. These aren't your average low-tier monsters. These borderland goblins are on a whole different level. Deciding they're perfect for a warm-up, he draws his blade. As the steel rings out, the entire goblin troop snaps toward him, somehow detecting him despite his suppressed presence. With a unified, piercing shriek, the creatures lunge, closing the distance with unnatural speed. But speed alone won't save them. In a blur of steel, he cleaves through them all in a single, devastating strike. He stands alone among the corpses in the blanched forest, where the air vibrates with raw, palpable energy. Examining a corpse, he notes their exceptional speed and concludes this is a unique trait of the borderland monsters. His eyes widen as he spots pulsating flora, realizing the dense mana of this region is what's supercharging these beasts. To confirm his theory, he extracts a magic stone from a fallen goblin and is stunned by its massive size. He realizes developing this land will be a nightmare without mana management, yet his resolve only hardens as he pushes further. His journey continues as he obliterates everything in his path, from monstrous plants to aggressive drakes and bizarre sack-like creatures. Meanwhile, in a nearby town, a young woman named Rita is startled by the sound of a door swinging open. She turns to see Clay and welcomes him back, skeptical that he actually made it to the borderlands and back so quickly. Her shock grows when she realizes it's barely past noon, but Clay simply calls the place fascinating. He proves his claim by presenting a mountain of magic stones for her to use, leaving Rita absolutely speechless. When he asks about a storage vault, Rita explains they could never afford such a luxury on the frontier. She appreciates the gesture but explains their grim reality. The only tool they own that can use scrap magic stones is a basic lantern. He falls silent, his gaze dropping to his own worn, calloused hands. He reflects on the harsh truth of the frontier. Life here is a relentless struggle, plagued by hardships that city dwellers could never even fathom. A determined smile spreads across his face. He owes Rita for her help, and right then, he declares he's found a new mission. Rita is stunned, questioning why he'd take on such a massive task for someone else. Inside a sparse room, the messy-haired youth prepares for work. With a confident smirk, he activates a storage spell, and a cascade of wood, crystals, and components tumbles from a magical rift onto his workbench. He picks up a precision tool and, with intense focus, begins meticulously carving a design into the wood, the tip making a soft crunching sound as it etches the surface. As his hands work, his mind begins to wander. He reflects on his purpose for coming to the borderlands, an untamed, demonic territory where he hopes to build a peaceful sanctuary for his friends. He acknowledges that while he wants to build a house immediately, his priority must be research to make the area safe. Until then, he must rely on the nearby village and the kindness of Rita's people. That thought snaps him back to reality. He needs to finish this magic stove immediately. He continues to carefully inscribe glowing runes onto the stove's circular components with expert precision. A nostalgic smile touches his lips. He realizes this is the first time someone has ever given him a real role, trusting him to craft such complex, magical devices. His memories transport him back to the day he left his village, feeling like an outcast. It was during that time of isolation that he eventually joined the hero's party. He recalls his companions, Prince Yuka, Sage Teritas, and the Saintess Flora. He felt useless compared to them, possessing only mediocre skills, yet they never once treated him coldly. The memories intensify as he sleeps. He remembers them shielding him from monsters, and even teaching him how to read and write. The weight of their kindness makes him groan and stir in his bed. Jolted by the vivid dream, he sits up in the dim light of his rustic room, the bittersweet memories of his former comrades still fresh in his mind. He's just stirring from sleep when a familiar voice calls out. Yuka, the first prince, peeks through the tent flap with a gentle smile, asking if he's finally awake. Startled, he stammers a greeting. Yuka's smile widens as he cheerfully wishes Clay a good morning. These were the moments he treasured most. For someone who had always been alone, the simple act of waking up and sharing breakfast brought him more happiness than anything else. He didn't care about slaying the Demon King or grand quests. He only wanted to be useful to those who changed his life. If you're enjoying Clay's journey, hit that like button and let's dive back in. This desire to be useful was always at the forefront of his mind. He remembers the sage, Teritas, gesturing toward a complex diagram and asking Clay if he had drawn it himself. He looks down at the intricate magic circle etched onto the parchment and quietly confirms that he was indeed the creator. Teritas studies the drawing with pure astonishment. He clarifies that he explains that through relentless copying, he achieved flawless precision. Teritas dwells on that word, copying. A sudden realization strikes the sage. He remembers Clay's skill seeds are limitations and appraisal. Individually, these skills are considered bottom tier, yet he suspects a hidden synergy. Clay listens in, completely baffled. He theorizes that the appraisal skill provides the data needed for his imitation to reach god-tier accuracy. The sage poses a terrifying question, his eyes wide with wonder. Could Kaido master any technique just by witnessing it once? While Kaido stammers, Teritas is convinced this fulfills the prophecy. He declares that Kaido has the potential to surpass even the legendary heroes. The sheer weight of this revelation leaves the young man paralyzed with shock. Overwhelmed, he drops to his knees and begs the sage for guidance, swearing to do whatever it takes. From then on, his life becomes a relentless grind of imitating magic, swordsmanship, and divine arts. He absorbs years of their specialized training in an instant. His only goal was to be useful, never dreaming he'd one day slay the Demon King. Back in the present, Kaido finishes his latest project and heads outside to clear his head. He asks Glanz what would happen if a monster reached the village, and Glanz confirms it would be a total catastrophe. However, Glanz reveals a shocking truth. If a monster leaves the borderlands, they simply drop dead. He clarifies that they can only survive a week, maybe a month, before their bodies give out. Kaido is reeling, trying to understand why they can't survive elsewhere. Then, it clicks. It's the mana. Later, he and Glanz return home to find Rita waiting with a warm smile. As she prepares dinner, Kaido announces he's finished a new magic tool, catching Glanz completely off guard. Her cheerful expression instantly melts into a mask of pure confusion. He unveils his latest inventions, a gleaming two-burner magic stove and a massive storage unit. Father and daughter stand frozen in awe. Rita realizes it's a genuine magic device, leaving Glanz speechless. Overwhelmed, Rita attempts to decline the priceless gift, but Kaito won't hear it. He insists it's mere compensation for their hospitality as he begins the installation. Her heart melts as she watches him work. Kaito reveals that this stove is special. It's the very first magic tool his master ever taught him to craft. Memories of Teritas flood back, reminding him of his master's core philosophy. Magic tools exist to bring happiness and enrich the lives of ordinary people. He expresses his hope that the tools serve them well. While Glanz watches with nervous sweat, Rita clutches her hands and whispers Kaito's name, her face flushed with gratitude. Shock turns into pure joy as Rita accepts the gift, vowing to cook Kaito the best meals of his life. Even Glanz is eager, demanding a tutorial on the spot. The cooking begins, and Rita is stunned by the stove's power. It ignites instantly, granting her total control over the flame, while Kaito watches with a satisfied smile. Glanz turns his attention to the storage unit, shocked to learn it keeps perishables fresh indefinitely. Kaito confirms its utility as the batter sizzles on the high-tech stove. Kaito recognizes the scent of pancakes. Rita explains that thick pancakes are notoriously difficult to master, but this stove makes the impossible look easy. The result is a flawless, golden-brown pancake. Glanz can't help but let out a cry of pure astonishment. He showers Rita with praise for mastering the new tech so quickly, leaving her bashful and laughing as Kaito looks on. However, Glanz's practical side kicks in. He worries that such a high-end device must require massive, expensive magic stones that they simply can't afford. Kato casually shatters those fears. He reveals he modified the stove to run on common junk stones, specifically a lowly goblin stone, leaving Glanz absolutely floored. He explains that this custom model is so advanced that not even royalty possesses it. The weight of the revelation hits them like a truck, and Glanz realizes this isn't just a tool, it's a world-changing invention. Later, Kato and Rita stand before a two-story house. They stare in stunned silence, a collective cry of disbelief escaping their lips. Nearby, the village is buzzing with gossip. They note how lively Glanz's home has become, with rumors spreading that Kaito is their mysterious benefactor. While some villagers now see Kaito as a decent man, a young man in a dark headband seethes with rage. He's convinced it's all an act and vows to expose Kaito's true nature. Meanwhile, Kaito makes his way through the dense, shadowy woods. Suddenly, a young villager leaps from the shadows, demanding to know how Kaito knows his name. Kaito calmly identifies him as Kiza, the son of the village guard. Kiza warns him that these are the dangerous borderlands and tells him to turn back. He insists it's his duty to protect the village from suspicious outsiders. The young guard remains unconvinced, certain that Glanz has been played for a fool. He's convinced Kaito is hiding a dark, ulterior motive. As Claes turns to leave, Kiza desperately calls out for him to wait. He acknowledges Claes' distrust, but pleads with him to stay within the village, claiming he knows exactly what the traveler is searching for. He furiously accuses Claes of targeting Rita, swearing he won't let a stranger lay a hand on her. Claes remains unfazed, merely musing that this fiery passion must be what people call youth, while Kaiser continues his tirade. Ignoring the baseless accusations, Claes continues his journey, leaving a stunned Kiza to watch him vanish into the dark woods of the borderlands. The young villager's dread stems from his father's grim warning, never venture into that forest alone, and if you do, turn back immediately. Yet, his fear clashes with the words of Rita and the other village boys. He recalls them hailing Claes as a hero, with Rita gushing over how he annihilated an entire monster horde in the blink of an eye. A memory flashes back to the feat itself. Claes, wielding spheres of crackling energy, unleashes devastating wind magic that slices through massive trunks like they are mere twigs. He works with surgical precision. With a flick of his wrist, he extracts moisture using water magic and levels the terrain with earth spells before telekinetically assembling the logs in mid-air. With one final heavy thud, the structure is complete. He stands back, hands on his hips, admiring the sturdy wooden shelter he has just manifested. Perched atop his new creation, he feels a surge of satisfaction. With the canopy cleared, sunlight finally pierces through, transforming the foreboding borderlands into a bright clearing. He ponders the mystery of this land. If simple clearing and leveling were all it took, he wonders why the kingdom's centuries of effort have failed to produce a single human settlement. He suspects the dense mana and the apex predators it attracts are the true culprits. To test his theory, he leaves the shelter overnight, questioning if the kingdom simply gave up or if a darker secret lurks in these abandoned lands. Upon returning to the village, he finds a panicked crowd. Worried whispers fill the air as they realize someone has vanished, speculating if the missing person met a grim fate in a nearby pond. Suddenly, a scarred, muscular man turns toward him. It's Altsam, Kiza's father, and he looks absolutely rattled to see the traveler. Altsam's face pales as he explains that Kiza never returned home. He reiterates the village's ironclad rule: never leave after sunset, for the borderland monsters hunt in the dark. And tonight, Kiza is gone. Clayers listens intently, a shadow of concern crossing his face. He offers a faint hope that the boy is simply sleeping somewhere safe within the village walls. But a chilling realization hits him. Kiza might have followed him into the woods. Taking command, he tells Alsam he'll sweep the village one last time before plunging into the forest himself. Determined to find the missing boy, he raises 2 fingers to his temple. He has to check this out immediately. He casts a powerful spell, sending concentric rings of light pulsing outward. A massive wave of detection magic sweeps across the entire region. The results are grim. Kiza is nowhere to be found in the village. His fears are confirmed. The boy is lost in the forest, and Clayers knows he must go after him. He bursts into a sprint, diving into the shadows of the woods. Though his detection range is limited, he keeps the spell active while running, finally picking up a signal 2 kilometers ahead. For now, Kiza is still alive. His relief vanishes instantly as his spell detects a monstrous presence closing in on Kiza. He sprints through the darkness, screaming Kiza's name, while the boy cowers behind a rock in absolute terror. The source of his dread is a colossal horned beast that towers over the landscape, its massive frame dwarfing the surrounding trees. This is a red grizzly, a lethal predator from the borderlands that has wandered far from its territory. Panic surges through Kiza as he realizes the danger his village is in. He must escape and sound the alarm. But as he prepares to bolt, the massive predator simply collapses in the clearing. To Kiza's shock, the beast has drifted into a deep slumber. Seizing his chance, Kiza begins to crawl away with agonizing caution, desperate not to wake the sleeping titan. He manages to put some distance between them, looking back with a face etched in pure dread. The beast remains still, its heavy breathing echoing through the silent woods. Suddenly, he loses his footing and crashes to the ground, his heart dropping as he realizes the gravity of his mistake. Clay's voice rings out through the forest, but it's too late. The red grizzly awakens, its massive horned shadow looming over the terrified boy. The beast strikes with blinding speed, a massive claw sending Kiza flying through the air. Clay watches in horror, cursing his inability to reach him in time. Before he can close the gap, 2 massive spectral wolves manifest from the shadows and lunge at the monster. After the wolves shred the beast, Clay rushes to Kaiser's side, finding him bleeding out from a horrific gash. Kaiser laughs weakly, certain that no one can survive such a devastating wound. Bleeding out under the moonlight, Kiza is hit with a wave of regret. He realizes he isn't a victim, but a fool who threw his life away for a petty grudge. His mind wanders to Clay and Rita, wondering why a legendary warrior from the capital would ever bother with a backwater village like theirs. He remembers the bitter jealousy that consumed him, resenting Clay for having everything and seemingly stealing Rita away. The memory fades as Clay places a hand over the lethal wound. A blinding light erupts as he invokes a high-tier spell, X-Heal. As the light dims, Kiza sits up in shock. The fatal wound has completely vanished, leaving nothing but his shredded, blood-soaked clothes behind. Staring at his restored body, Kiza screams that the healing is insane, convinced he was a dead man. Clay calmly asks if the pain is gone, but Kaiser remains shell-shocked by the miracle. He looks up at Clay with a mix of shame and confusion, asking why he would save someone who treated him with nothing but contempt. Clay simply offers a smile, brushing off the boy's past hostility as nothing more than a bit of cute jealousy. He reminds Kiza that he's the adult here before urging him to stand up. Everyone is worried sick, and they have a lot to talk about. As they approach the village, 2 residents spot them, their expressions twisted with alarm. Clay enters the village with an exhausted Kiza on his back, drawing a crowd of relieved villagers. Kiza immediately calls out to his father. Instead of a warm welcome, Kiza's father strikes him across the head, furiously berating him for his reckless idiocy. He demands to know why he entered the Forbidden Forest alone, leaving Clay stunned by the violent outburst. Once his rage cools, the man turns to Clay with profound gratitude, admitting his son is only alive because of his intervention. Clay remains humble, stating he was simply happy to help. Kiza interjects, proudly announcing that Clay single-handedly took down a stray red grizzly. The news sends shockwaves through the crowd, as even veteran adventurers struggle against such monstrous beasts. Clay produces a massive dark magic stone as proof, leaving the villagers gasping in awe at its unprecedented size. Kiza's father explains the gravity of the situation. A stray monster usually forces a total lockdown of the forest. By slaying the beast, Clay hasn't just saved a life, he saved their entire livelihood. The man's serious demeanor breaks into a booming laugh as he pulls Clay into a massive embrace. He declares a village-wide feast to celebrate their safe return, crediting Clay for handling the crisis. While the village celebrates, a darker scene unfolds far away within the cold, stone depths of the royal castle. A sinister plan is being set into motion. A mysterious cloaked figure descends a flight of stone stairs, their footsteps echoing through the oppressive silence. Navigating the dark, arched passageways, the figure whispers to themselves, confirming they've found the secret hiding place. They reach the end of the hall, standing before the colossal, chained corpse of the Demon King. Even in death, the being radiates an overwhelming, terrifying presence. Reaching toward the fallen king, the figure vows to see his dying wish fulfilled. Their goal is clear: to bring divine punishment upon the accursed hero as the royal faction begins its move. Back in the bustling village hall, the air is thick with cheer and the clinking of mugs. The village chief finally makes his appearance amidst the hearty celebration. Kiza approaches Clay alongside the chief, while his father bows low in a display of genuine respect. Clay, ever the gentleman, insists that he's the one who should be grateful for their hospitality. He offers his services to the chief for any future needs, while Kiza stands by, a small scar from the battle still visible on his cheek. Suddenly, Kiza bows deeply, his voice trembling with gratitude as he admits he owes his life to Clay's intervention. Clay is taken aback by this dramatic change in attitude. Kiza confesses his dream of becoming an adventurer, though he lacked the strength to ever leave the village. He admits that Clay's arrival initially filled him with bitter jealousy. Looking up with a face full of shame, Kiza apologizes for his terrible behavior, fumbling for words as Clay listens intently. His embarrassment turns into a desperate plea as he clenches his fists, begging Clay to take him as a student and calling him Big Bro. This unexpected request and the weight of the title leave Clay completely stunned. As his eyes widen in shock, Yuka watches the scene unfold with a knowing, placid smile. The initial shock quickly fades, replaced by a sly, calculating grin. The decision is made. It's finally his turn to give an answer. Later, as the villagers feast together under the evening sky, they ask if Clay has officially taken Kiza as his disciple. Clay, sitting with Kiza and Rita, clarifies that he'll only train the boy when he has spare time. He agrees to the mentorship, explaining to a worried Rita that Kiza will never grow if he remains confined to the village forever. Despite her doubts about his busy schedule, he promises to teach the boy everything he can. A smile plays on his lips as he remembers how his own friends saw his potential and pushed him to become stronger. If he can help Kiza grow by sharing his knowledge, he'll do so gladly. He makes it clear to the young man that this won't be a grueling daily grind. Training happens between his work developing the borderlands. He insists that Kiza's father remains his primary instructor, and the boy agrees with a surge of pure excitement. As the three sit together, Kiza asks the burning question: why is Clay so obsessed with developing the borderlands? Clay reveals his true goal. Once the land is his, he wants to invite his legendary comrades to live there. The answer catches them off guard. While Kiza marvels at how powerful these friends must be, Clay explains his simple reasoning. He believes the borderlands is the perfect sanctuary for them to finally relax. With an earnest look toward the horizon, he admits this is the only way he can truly repay them for everything they've sacrificed for him. Moved by his conviction, Kiza declares his burning desire to meet these comrades. Rita just laughs, warning him that he's in for a massive surprise because Clay's friends are in a league of their own. The following day, deep within the borderlands, the forest grows thick with ancient towering trees. Clay treks through the dense undergrowth, intending to inspect the area he spent all day clearing. He stops dead in his tracks, bewildered. Where his clearing should be, a massive wall of trees now stands. He double-checks his surroundings, but he's certain this is the exact spot. He stares in pure disbelief as colossal trees have regenerated overnight, completely swallowing the pavilion he built. It's now clear why everyone abandoned this land. This isn't natural growth, and something unnatural is at work. Kneeling down, he touches the earth and confirms his theory. It's not just the air. The soil itself is overflowing with a terrifying amount of energy, fueling this rampant vegetation. He wonders how he can even begin to conquer such a phenomenon. As he mulls over the problem, a voice from behind interrupts his thoughts. As Clay murmurs about the mana-saturated soil, a memory from his past journeys begins to click into place. The companion explains how barren fields back home required him to channel his own mana into the soil as nutrients. This revelation hits Clay like a lightning bolt. He reasons that if mana can enrich the soil, the inverse must be true. If he can siphon the excess mana from the land, he can stop this unnatural growth at the root. Fueled by a new purpose, he decides to take action. A complex, magical sigil erupts into existence between his hands as he prepares a spell specifically designed to drain the mana from the earth. 3 days later, he's still locked in battle with the problem. He realizes he must perfectly reverse the mana infusion technique while finding a way to safely burn through the massive quantities of energy he's absorbing. A familiar voice breaks his focus. It's Alzum, arriving to repay his debt by helping with the development project. Clay is happy for the company, but Alzum admits he's the only villager with the guts to actually enter the borderlands. Walking together, Alzum doubts that any one man can tame this wild land, but Clay's overwhelming confidence makes him hesitate to speak up. He expects Clay to give up eventually, while Clay feels a bit guilty for letting the man walk all this way for a finished job. Reaching a clearing, Clay reveals a brand new house, standing proudly where a thick forest once stood. Alzum's jaw drops in pure disbelief, but Clay remains unfazed, inviting his very first guest inside for some tea. Alzum panics, shouting that the regenerating trees will destroy the house in minutes, a disaster Clay has already experienced. Clay just smiles, claiming he's already conquered that impossible obstacle before offering a live demonstration. He plants his foot firmly on the ground, ready to unleash his power. As the roots retreat into the dirt, Clay explains how he leveled the land, leaving Alzum completely speechless. A massive, glowing magic circle erupts from the earth, flooding the entire clearing with a brilliant, blinding light. He breaks down the first spell, a mana-hungry circle designed to strip the very essence from the soil. It's a deadly combo. One spell drains the mana, and the other burns it off, starving the trees of their life force. With the setup complete, Clay extends his hand over the runes, and a soft glow begins to emanate from the ground. That glow transforms into a titanic pillar of raw energy, a mana vortex that rips through the air with a thunderous roar. Altsum is paralyzed by the sheer scale of the magic, watching as Clay calmly waits for the mana to be completely incinerated. With the land now barren and mana-free, Clay explains that he waited days to ensure nothing would ever grow back. Altsum calls the brute force method insane, but Clay just laughs it off, inviting him back for drinks while a dark figure watches from the shadows. Suddenly, the mood shifts. Altsum senses a hidden threat and glares toward the tree line, his body tensing up. Clay notices the concern on Altsum's face and offers a calm, reassuring smile as he speaks his name. Clay reveals he has sensed a hidden watcher for an entire week. He explains that since it hasn't attacked, he simply ignored it, leaving Altsum stunned into silence. He places a reassuring hand on Altsum's shoulder, but the man remains on edge. Clay remains unshakable, hinting at a secret source of absolute confidence. He reveals the chilling truth. These aren't trees at all, but the massive, petrified bones of a gargantuan beast forming a skeletal wall around them. Clay looms over Altsum, radiating a crushing aura that forces the man into a cold sweat. Fear grips Altsum's heart as the pressure intensifies. With a smirk of absolute certainty, Clay vows to crush any threat that dares to emerge. Altsum lets out a nervous laugh, admitting that Clay is truly terrifying. Sensing the danger, the hidden stalker clicks their tongue in frustration and retreats into the deep shadows of the forest. As the figure vanishes through the canopy, their mind reels with one burning question: just what kind of monster is this human? They reach a grim conclusion. If this man threatens their territory, they will have no choice but to eliminate him. Elsewhere, Teredes discusses the castle's security, noting that the underground vaults house dangerous magical artifacts that make them a prime target. Laura enters the fray, immediately deducing that the real source of his concern is the Demon King's remains. She dismisses the body as a useless husk, but Teredes corrects her, revealing it's preserved by a time-freezing spell and ripe for exploitation by any thief. A sinister grin crosses his face as he admits he'd rather incinerate the corpse than let a rival seize it. Flora watches, her irritation growing at the mention of a cover-up. Exhausted by the endless political games and forced marriage proposals, Flora laments that human war never truly ends. Teredes agrees, calling conflict an eternal cycle for humanity. Her mind wanders back to Clay, her face flushing as she whispers his name in longing. Unbeknownst to her, Clay stands near the doorway, his expression unreadable. Back at the clearing, Clay observes Kiza as the young warrior takes a combat stance, ready for another grueling training session. The boy lunges forward, his blade cutting through the air with lethal speed and newfound precision, the force of the strike crackling with power. Clay offers a rare smile, praising his progress, though Kiza is frustrated by how long it took to master the technique. Panic sets in as Kiza asks if Clay is really moving to the borderlands, begging his mentor to stay in the village just a while longer. Clay explains his new home is finally ready and he can't overstay his welcome, promising to return and check on Kiza's training progress in the future. After saying his farewells, Clay arrives at his new sanctuary, a sturdy two-story fortress standing tall in the heart of the wilderness. Inside, he begins arranging his furniture, sliding a wooden chair into place at a long, rugged table. Standing back with hands on his hips, he surveys the room. With the essentials finally in place, it's starting to feel like a true home. His gaze falls upon a makeshift sleeping bag, and he realizes he needs a real bed. He takes pride in the fact that he's crafted almost every piece of furniture himself. A grin spreads across his face as he envisions the future, total self-sufficiency, a grander house for guests, and even a luxurious outdoor bath. Gazing out from his new sanctuary, He feels a deep sense of gratitude toward the ancient laws that granted him this incredible opportunity. The sheer scale of his domain is breathtaking, giving him the rare freedom to develop an entire forest as he sees fit. However, a practical problem arises. Training Kiza directly is difficult because the daily trek between the borderlands and Emeru village is grueling. He ponders the issue, wishing for a safe path through the woods that would make travel effortless and allow others to visit him freely. Suddenly, a bold solution strikes him. He'll simply build a proper road himself. Donning his cloak, he heads out to meet a merchant for supplies, ready to pitch his ambitious new plan. Over a meal, with Glans and Rita, he explains the project. Glans is amused, noting that Clay always comes up with the wildest ideas. He details his plan to pave a road straight to the borderlands, though he acknowledges the forest's importance to the people of Emeru. Since the villagers rely on the woods for hunting, he seeks permission first. Glans agrees it's a solid idea, provided the village chief signs off. Glans urges him to ask the chief tomorrow, teasing that a lonely Rita would love to visit him more often, leaving her completely flustered. Clay turns to Rita for confirmation, causing her to stammer as she struggles to find the right words. She softly admits, "It's true," blushing as she confesses that life has been far more exciting since he arrived, catching Clay off guard. With hopeful eyes and clasped hands, she asks if she can finally visit him once the road is complete. He agrees instantly, promising to install magic tools along the path to repel monsters and ensure her safety. Her face lights up with pure joy. He pauses for a moment, a thoughtful look crossing his face, as he considers one final precaution. He suggests that for extra safety, she should travel with a protector, offering a specific name with a friendly smile, Kiza. She mulls over the idea, noting that Kiza's intense training has made him reliable. Clay clenches his fist, silently rooting for his friend's success. Dawn breaks the next morning, casting a golden glow over the entire village. Inside the office, Clay stands before the village chief. The elder repeats the proposal, confirming Clay's ambitious plan to carve a road through the forest. Clay worries it might be a mistake, but the chief quickly dismisses his concerns. He reveals that an ancient path already exists, buried deep within the woods from ages past. This revelation cements Clay's next move. To clear the way, he must locate those ruins, and he knows Altsum is the perfect guide for the job. He thanks the elder for his support and the vital intel. The chief brushes it off, insisting it's the least he can do after Clay's help with Kiza. He explains that Emeru village was founded by pioneers meant to develop the borderlands. As their descendant, the chief vows to help Clay fulfill the dream they once abandoned. Struck by the weight of this legacy, Clay is momentarily speechless before offering a heartfelt thanks. With Altsum leading the way, they venture deep into the forest, surrounded by towering pale trees. Altsum halts and points to the forest floor. Beneath the thick undergrowth, broken stone tiles reveal the remnants of the ancient road. Clay kneels to inspect the path, wondering about its age. Altsum estimates it's over a century old, as it was already ancient when he was a boy. The mission is simple: fell the trees and lay new stone. Clay finds the task easy compared to his work in the borderlands, and they prepare to begin. They dive into the work. As Altsum cuts timber, Clay unleashes his magic, using wind cutters to slice through wood and tearing old stones from the earth. With the path cleared, Clay slams his hands down, casting ground press. The earth compacts with violent force, leaving Altsum stunned by the raw power. He surveys the level ground, deciding to clear the entire route before laying tiles. Altsum is already floored, claiming the path is already perfect. With a determined grin, Clay announces he's clearing the road all the way to the borderlands. Altsum holds up a hand, trying to process the madness. The old man asks in disbelief if he plans to finish today. Clay gives a cheerful nod and tells him to keep leading the way. Moments later, a pristine stone road stretches before them, gleaming under the sun. Alzum stands in stunned silence at the impossible feat. He can't believe Clay actually pulled it off. Clay apologizes for the late hour, but Alzum admits the spectacle was worth every second. Alzum realizes that with this road, Kiza can finally visit on his own. Clay agrees, noting it'll make their training sessions much more efficient. His expression shifts to one of pure gravity. Before proceeding, he has a vital question for Clay. He notes that Kiza's solo training is yielding incredible results as his movements grow sharper by the day. Alzum was actually prepared to advance him to the next tier of mastery. He then drops a direct question, asking Clay if he's ever bothered to check Kiza's skill seed. Alzum repeats the term, completely baffled. Clay explains that if Kiza wants to be a true adventurer, he must understand his innate talents or risk wasting his potential forever. Alzum admits that, to his knowledge, no one in the village has ever had theirs checked. The young man reflects on how he remained ignorant of his own skills until meeting his companions. Alzum explains the harsh reality of the borderlands. Skill seeds require church-sanctioned magic tools found only in the royal capital, a journey far too dangerous and costly for commoners. Clay then proposes a shocking alternative, asking Alzum for permission to check Kiza's skill seed himself. Alzum looks on in total bewilderment, wondering how such a feat is even possible. Alzum immediately assumes Clay plans to escort Kiza all the way to the capital. Clay instantly shuts that down, clarifying that a long journey isn't part of the plan. Instead, he flashes a confident smirk and reveals his true intent. He's going to forge a magic tool to check the skill seeds himself. This declaration leaves Alzum paralyzed with shock. He elaborates, noting that while these tools are church-restricted and their construction is a state secret, his master knew the formula, and by extension, so does he. A weary Alzum sighs, realizing it's pointless to be surprised by Clay's godlike abilities anymore. He asks if there's anything the man can't do, correctly guessing the tool will be finished by morning. Clay then extends the offer to Alzum, suggesting he check his own skill seed as well. He adds that if the villagers are interested, he'll perform a mass screening for everyone. Alzum eagerly accepts. As Alzum turns to rush off and spread the word before curfew, Clay calls out for him to wait. With a simple wave of his hand, the pitch-black forest path erupts into a sea of sparkling magical lights, illuminating the road with a gentle, ethereal glow. He explains that despite the new road, the forest remains treacherous at night. These lights will ensure Alzum reaches home safely. While grateful, Alzum jokes that the display is a bit too romantic, teasingly asking if Clay is trying to woo him. Clay just smiles and offers to personally escort him home. As they walk, Alzum finally voices the heavy thoughts on his mind. He lists Clay's impossible feats, clearing a massive road in a day, wielding high-tier magic, and now building restricted church artifacts. The question hangs heavy in the air, sharp and unavoidable. Alzum presses him, his gaze locked onto Clay, demanding to know his true identity. Clay offers nothing but a disarming smile, claiming he's just a humble villager with a dream to develop the region. However, his mind flashes back to his true past, a lone warrior standing defiant against the Demon King and his generals. By the next morning, the entire village is electric with anticipation. Standing alongside a smug Alzum and a curious Rita, Clay stares at the massive gathering with genuine surprise. He admits he only expected a few interested souls to show up. His surprise turns to absolute shock as he realizes the scale of the event. It's not just a few people, the entire village has arrived. A voice from the crowd shouts that obviously everyone wants to know their fate, leaving Clay completely overwhelmed. A rowdy crowd of villagers swarms the town square. Alzum, a man marked by a prominent scar, grumbles to his companion that offering free skill checks was a massive mistake, as the entire village has turned out. His partner agrees, eager to see what legendary skill seeds might emerge, while Clay looks on, stunned by the overwhelming turnout. Casting a skeptical eye toward Clay, Alzum gestures at the smooth slate in the young man's hands. He demands to know if this device is the real deal, mocking it as nothing more than a plain, useless metal plate. Clay fires back with enthusiasm, explaining that the base is forged from mithril, a legendary magic conductor integrated with complex circuits for pinpoint accuracy. Alzum immediately cuts him off, bluntly stating he has no interest in a technical lecture he'll never understand. Just then, the village chief emerges from a nearby building. He approaches Clay directly, requesting the honor of being the very first to test the mysterious device. As the chief steps forward, Clay sets the slate on a wooden counter and instructs the elder to place his hand firmly upon its surface. The chief complies, pressing his palm flat against the cold metal. Clay explains that the process takes 30 seconds for the skill seed to manifest, while Alzum watches with crossed arms, his curiosity piqued. During the wait, Clay highlights the device's superior features. Unlike the church's public skill checkers, his invention ensures total privacy, meaning only the user can see their results, a deliberate and vital design choice. He follows up with a grim warning, advising the chief never to reveal his skill seed to others. He explains that villains, and even the church itself, are known to exploit or forcibly conscript those with high-tier abilities. The chief's expression darkens as he listens. He recalls haunting rumors of a child born with the saint's skill seed who was ruthlessly abducted by the church. Suddenly, a blinding light erupts from the slate. The chief gasps as glowing runes and ancient text swirl across the surface, unveiling his hidden power. Clay watches closely, promising the chief he'll handle the warnings for the rest of the villagers. As the chief maintains his grip, the runes solidify into a single legendary title, Ruler. He stares at the result in stunned silence, a profound realization taking root in his mind. He looks up, questioning the nature of the ruler skill, a name he's never encountered. Clay, visibly impressed, explains that it's an exceptionally rare and god-tier ability perfectly suited for a village leader. He elaborates that it's also known as the commander skill. If the church or the military ever caught wind of such power, they would scout him instantly. Clay quickly adds that fortunately the chief is safe from such a fate now. The chief's gaze drifts as he laments discovering such a grand power at his advanced age. This catches Clay off guard, leading him to ask if the old man wishes he had known about his potential in his youth. The chief shakes his head, a knowing smile playing on his lips. He admits that if he had known back then, his life would have been far too reckless and dangerous. His perspective is unwavering. As the village chief, he can finally lead his people with true purpose. Clay listens intently, a sense of deep understanding dawning upon him. Realizing he might have overstepped by prying into the old man's past, Clay offers a sincere apology, but the chief simply waves it away with a chuckle. With the matter settled, the chief turns his attention to the younger villagers gathered nearby. He brushes off his own story as the ramblings of an old man and offers his heartfelt gratitude to Clay for giving the youth a chance to seize their own destinies. Clay watches the villagers, realizing that the chief's ironclad leadership is exactly why this remote village has thrived. Joined by Alzum, he turns to the growing crowd and announces that it's time for everyone to line up and discover their hidden potential. At his command, a line forms instantly, a surge of electric anticipation filling the square as every villager waits for their life-changing moment. The skill assessments kick off as the villagers engage in playful banter. They tease Kiza, suggesting he might just be a lowly cook, while Rita and Glanz joke that he's better suited as a simple teacher. Kiza bristles at the insults, shouting at them to shut their mouths. Nearby, Glanz's own assessment concludes, and Clay reads the glowing result: Negotiator. It's a perfect fit for the persuasive man, and Clay notes that the army would kill to have someone with his recruitment potential. Next, Alzum presents his skill seed, and the result materializes: Guardian Warrior. He stares at the glowing text with a cold, unreadable expression. He asks Clay for the specifics of the skill, causing the young man to break into a nervous sweat. In his haste to process everyone, Clay realizes he forgot to give the villagers a proper explanation. Alzum admits that Guardian Warrior is a top-tier pull that perfectly suits his adventuring past. He explains that it synergizes with defensive abilities like Fighting Spirit, though he grimaces at the thought of himself ever using sorcery. He then breaks into a wide grin, realizing that for a man dedicated to protecting others, the title is surprisingly fitting. Clay watches him, relieved by the veteran's positive reaction. While the atmosphere is light, Alzum turns serious, cryptically telling Clay that his own true skill is a different kind of killer move that's already been judged. Clay can only stare back, completely baffled by the statement. His attention shifts to the gathered villagers as the chief expresses hope that the hero Yuko will summon Clay again soon. She warmly invites him back at any time, causing a genuine smile to spread across Clay's face. But the warmth is fleeting as a cold memory resurfaces. Clay recalls his own ceremony in a sterile hall, where he was branded with trash-tier skills like mimicry and hole digger, making him feel like his world was ending. Alzum snaps him out of his reverie, advising that a skill seed only reveals aptitude, not destiny. He warns that some children are crushed by their parents' expectations, leading Clay to think that perhaps he should just take things easy. He watches as Alzum waves enthusiastically from the crowd, laughing and calling him Big Bro. It's a clear sign of their newfound, unbreakable camaraderie. As the assessments continue, Kiza eagerly declares that it's finally his turn. Beside him, Rita remains calm, stating she's only here because her father insisted she get her skills checked. The two approach the table where Clay waits. He notes they are the final pair and instructs Keza to place his hand on the board, though a flicker of concern crosses his mind. Kiza complies, pressing his palm firmly against the surface. Suddenly, a brilliant, blinding light erupts from the board, enveloping his entire hand. The results materialize, and they are staggering. Kiza is a magic swordsman, while Rita is a high-rank magic tool master. The duo stands there in stunned silence. Breaking the quiet, Kiza asks if being a magic swordsman is actually any good. Rita is equally confused, having never built a magic tool in her life, and they both demand answers from Clay. Clay's eyes widen in pure shock. He struggles to find his voice, before finally confirming that Kiza's magic swordsman is an incredibly rare, high-rank skill seed. Regaining his composure, he explains that a magic swordsman is a legendary composite skill. It's a fusion of a swordsman and a sorcerer, both of which are already powerful in their advanced forms. He continues, revealing that this skill is a tier above even great swordsmen and great sorcerers. Clay admits that in all his time, he has never seen a skill this powerful before. Kiza beams, clenching his fist in total triumph. Though he doesn't fully grasp the mechanics, he's thrilled to be elite. Clay feels a wave of relief, resolving that it's finally time to tell Kiza the truth. He begins by detailing the massive potential hidden within Kiza's skill. If a magic swordsman knight were to appear in the capital, it would trigger a total frenzy. This is a legendary skill seed, a direct path to becoming a knight captain. He warns that revealing this truth would subject them to brutal, relentless training. Turning to Rita, he discloses that her skill is equally elite. A high-tier, magic tool master skill seed. The revelation only draws a weary sigh from her. She asks for confirmation, wondering if she truly possesses a gift for crafting magical artifacts. He affirms her talent, noting that a magic tool master can master a vast array of specialized abilities over time. Her mind reels as she considers the endless possibilities: artifact creation, alchemy, potion brewing, and the complex art of magic circles. He proposes a practical start, suggesting she craft magic tools for glance to sell. However, Rita hesitates, admitting she hasn't yet grasped the weight of this newfound power. Sensing her doubt, he offers to personally mentor her, revealing that he, too, is an expert in magic tool creation. This unexpected revelation leaves her completely stunned. After a brief pause, she turns away and politely declines the offer. She insists she's content with her current life, a refusal that catches him completely off guard. He asks if she's absolutely certain. With a faint, bittersweet smile, she confirms her choice, refusing to force herself into a life she isn't ready to embrace. Shifting his focus back to Kiza, Clay announces an immediate overhaul of the boy's training regimen. He must now integrate magic with his swordsmanship. Kiza is initially shocked, but his doubt instantly turns into pure adrenaline as he screams his desire to learn. The boy sprints to his father, Alsham, shouting that he's destined to become a mage. As the two celebrate, Clay watches from the shadows, his expression unreadable and deep in thought. Observing the villagers, Kiza boasting to his father, and Rita standing quietly, a chilling realization hits him. Something is wrong. The skill seeds these people possess are far too powerful to be a coincidence. He recalls that an entire village possessing such elite skills is unheard of. He wonders if there's a secret condition or a hidden requirement that the people of Emil village have unknowingly met. As he ponders the mystery, the village chief jokes that had he known his potential sooner, he'd be living in a capital mansion by now. He then playfully calls Clay a fool for his seriousness. Surveying the crowd, Clay realizes that regardless of the cause, this borderland village is a literal goldmine of human potential. This intel is of critical importance. He weighs his next move, considering a secret correspondence with Yuka. He recalls the political climate in the capital. The second prince has far less influence than the first, which is why he was exiled to the frontier to face the Demon King. The man he intends to contact, Second Prince Yuka Fargas Altonia, is already in motion. Yuka aims to recruit every talent possible for the kingdom's survival. While Altsam remains suspicious of these strange developments, he eventually admits that Kiza has found a truly incredible mentor. Several days later, Clay ventures deep into the suffocating wilderness of the borderlands alone. He moves with cold determination, seeking to solve the mystery of the Red Grizzly. He must discover why a beast of that caliber would ever abandon its territory. He pushes deeper into the zone, where the air is thick with concentrated mana. Creatures born within this miasma are biologically bound to it and should never be able to leave. His investigation leads back to the locals. Aldzam confirms that while goblin swarms are common, the appearance of a monster as lethal as a red grizzly is an unprecedented anomaly. He processes this new intel, his expression darkening. Something unprecedented is brewing within the borderlands. His mind flashes back to Keziah, bloodied and clinging to life. He built the road to prevent such tragedies, and now, with burning resolve, he pushes forward to eliminate the source of this chaos. Deep within the territory, Clay carves a path through the dense overgrowth, his blade cleaving through massive trunks with overwhelming power. He stands over his latest kill, a massive horned beast. Surveying the carnage, he realizes he's reached the heart of the disturbance. After dispatching the creature, he sets up camp and roasts a prime cut of meat over a crackling fire, reflecting on the sheer, incomprehensible scale of the borderlands. Suddenly, a faint, pulsing light catches his eye, emanating from a dark crevice hidden among the ancient trees. Without warning, the light detonates into a chaotic blast, unleashing a torrent of dark energy that ravages the forest. Clay remains unfazed, his gaze locked onto the source of the explosion with lethal focus. He raises a hand, effortlessly conjuring a shimmering barrier that deflects the incoming wave of dark power. As the barrier holds firm, he calmly mumbles to himself, analyzing how to fine-tune his magical output. However, his display of power hasn't gone unnoticed. A tall, elegant woman emerges from the shadows, her presence as silent as the grave. Her features are breathtaking. Between her otherworldly beauty and long, pointed ears, he realizes he's looking at an elf. She stares back with an unreadable expression. Breaking the tension, Clay gestures to his meal and asks if she can stomach monster meat. He flashes a welcoming smile, presenting 2 full plates and mugs as a clear invitation to join him. Her caution begins to melt. She admits she was only planning to watch him, but since he's being so hospitable, she accepts the offer. As they begin to eat, Clay chews thoughtfully, trying to process this bizarre turn of events. He watches her eat with regal grace, the surrounding flowers turning the campsite into a makeshift palace garden. He wonders if she was the one targeting him just moments ago. Sensing his doubt, she clarifies she was merely observing. She asks if he thinks elves only exist in the sacred land of Elfra, to which he admits that's the common belief. He's stunned by her blunt honesty regarding the surveillance. It then hits him. Despite sharing a meal, they haven't even exchanged names. Taking the lead, he introduces himself as Clay, claiming to be a simple villager looking to cultivate the land in this dangerous region. In response, she introduces herself as Charlotte of the Vertit tribe, an elf living right in his backyard, leaving Clay completely floored. He struggles to process the news. She lives in this desolate borderland? Charlotte confirms it, pointing deep into the shadows of the surrounding forest. With a gentle smile, she explains that these woods are far more crowded than any human would ever imagine. Clay is skeptical, asking if even demons lurk here. Charlotte confirms the presence of elves, beastmen, and demons alike, noting that many nations hunt and enslave elves for their mystical properties. She adds a chilling detail. In the demon territories, humans aren't even rivals. They're just prey to be hunted on our height. The truth finally hits him. These borderlands are a sanctuary for races driven out by humanity, where the absence of people is a blessing. Sitting across from him, she admits life here is a struggle, but one must choose their poison: the cruelty of humans or the ferocity of monsters. Her people chose the lesser of 2 evils. She notes that while Clay came to cultivate this land, the other races have been doing the exact same thing for ages. The revelation stuns him. He thought he was building a fresh haven, only to realize he's an uninvited guest on land settled long ago. A cold realization sinks in. To a refugee like her, he's just another human invader. Has she been watching him this whole time, waiting for a strike? He asks why she's even here, and her answer is a shocker. She's here because he's terrifying. She even admits she initially took him for a deadly assassin. Flustered, he insists he's not a threat and has no interest in fighting. Charlotte observes him closely, finally acknowledging that he might be telling the truth. She then asks if he's truly blind to the massive swarm of spirits surrounding him, claiming his very presence is a menace to her kind. He looks around, and for the first time, he sees them. Countless glowing orbs and ethereal spirits swirling in the air, leaving him utterly baffled. He turns away, a bead of sweat rolling down his face as the weight of the revelation leaves him speechless. Finding his voice, he argues there's no way he could have known. He asks if only elves possess the sight to perceive such mystical beings. He knows humans shouldn't see spirits. Tarita mentioned his aptitude before, but hearing it from a spirit-attuned elf makes the reality impossible to ignore. He demands to know why they're following him. Charlotte tells of an ancient clan, the spirit's beloved children, who shared his strange magnetic pull. She describes how their emotions could warp the very weather, triggering massive storms or heat waves. Clay listens, finding the tale almost too wild to believe. Then, the story turns grim. Charlotte reveals the woman eventually exploded, leaving a massive crater in her wake. Clay is horrified. This power is a ticking time bomb. She drives the point home, asking if he finally understands her caution. It's only natural to fear a man who is essentially a walking time bomb wandering near her home. Clay, looking troubled, admits her logic is airtight. Determined not to be a nuisance, he asks how he can ease her concerns. He slides a thick, ornate bracelet across the table, offering it as a peace offering. Charlotte stares at the object, her expression unreadable. She listens as he explains the gift. He calls it a spirit bracelet, claiming that even a human without magic can use it to command spirits. He formally requests that she accept the powerful tool. He seeks to confirm the mechanics, asking if the spirits will now obey his every whim. She affirms this, and he realizes that with this bracelet, he can finally issue direct instructions to the spirits. Surprised by her generosity, he asks if she traveled all this way just to deliver the item. She confirms it, stating she was simply being honest about his character. Flustered but grateful, he accepts the tool. His fingers tighten around the ornate diamond-patterned bracelet. With her business concluded, she announces her departure. However, he stops her, claiming he has one final question. He asks if she's noticed any strange changes in the surrounding area. She seems confused, so he clarifies that he isn't talking about himself. He explains that a red grizzly has recently surfaced in the nearby Fox Forest. At the mention of the beast, her expression shifts to one of realization. She confirms there's been a stir about a powerful monster appearing nearby. He presses further, asking if she knows what's causing the disturbance. She admits she's in the dark. He apologizes for being unable to help, but she tells him not to worry, formally introducing herself as Charlie. He smiles warmly at the introduction and asks if she'd be willing to meet with him again sometime. She turns to leave, ethereal light swirling around her as she agrees, but adds a condition: only if there's a next time. She vanishes as swiftly as she arrived, a gust of wind marking her exit. Clay remains seated, watching her disappear into the tree line. He stares at the spot where she vanished, deep in thought. He realizes that despite her overwhelming power, he sensed zero killing intent, as if she were completely masking her presence. His gaze falls to the bracelet she gave him. While she seemed friendly enough, he concludes that she isn't someone he can fully trust just yet. He sits alone in the quiet clearing, weighing their shared circumstances. Since they both live on the fringes of society, he thinks it might be beneficial if they could actually get along. Meanwhile, deeper within the woods, Charlotte walks alone, her thoughts drifting to the man she calls Clay. She acknowledges his immense power, but for now, she doesn't sense any immediate danger from him. Her expression hardens with cold resolve. She cannot afford to be careless. Any potential threat must be neutralized. With that final thought, she presses onward through the dense forest. She grinds to a halt, her calm facade finally shattering as she realizes the terrifying truth. The red grizzly didn't just leave. It was driven out by a monster far more malevolent than itself, an entity she couldn't hope to escape. Her path leads her to a colossal ancient tree that pulses with a suffocating and divine presence. Her mind flashes back to the nightmare of her exile, a winged demon wreathed in shadows looming over her. She trembles, recalling the sheer terror and wondering why such a monstrosity would cross into these lands. Meanwhile, the morning peace in the village is shattered by a wave of frantic activity. Residents huddle together, their whispers thick with confusion and wild speculation. At the center of the chaos stands a woman with flowing hair and an ornate staff, claiming to be a priestess left behind by her association. Alzam investigates the commotion, learning that a legendary beauty from the capital named Flora has arrived specifically to find Clay. 3 years have passed since the Demon King's fall, and a group of heroes arrives at a remote borderland orphanage. While the children erupt in cheers, a young boy named Kaito watches them with a piercing gaze. Miss Yuka reassures the orphans that the monsters are gone, and they are finally safe to play outside. Amidst the celebration, Clay asks Flora if she is the secret benefactor of this church. She simply smiles, confirming she only wants to help. Clay's expression turns cold as he questions her soft methods, arguing that slaying monsters should be their only priority. He insists that focusing on the singular, efficient goal of total victory is the only way to truly save the world. Flora remains silent, her eyes distant as she absorbs his words. She admits that from a purely logical standpoint, his focus on efficiency is correct. Nearby, Yuka continues to comfort the children with a warm smile. He explains that life is a marathon, not a sprint, and that for these children to have a future, consistent aid is far more vital than a one-time victory. Turning back to Clay with an earnest gaze, Flora reveals her true philosophy. To her, saving people means restoring their hope. It's more than just providing food or medicine. It's about giving them a reason to believe that being alive is a blessing. The next morning, a violent knocking thunders through a small shack. Kaito is jolted awake as Alzam, the man with the scarred eye, practically kicks down his door. An irritated Alzam reveals that Kaito has an unexpected visitor who arrived in the dead of night. Kaito is stunned, unable to imagine who would travel this far to see him. Alzam elaborates, describing the visitor as a striking blonde woman who looks like a high-ranking priestess, leaving Kaito even more bewildered. Elsewhere, a villager screams in disbelief as he stares at his bare arm. An old, permanent wound has vanished without a trace, healed by a pair of hands glowing with a divine, gentle light. Overwhelmed with gratitude, an elderly man offers Flora payment, but she dismisses it with grace. She insists that her actions were born purely from a genuine desire to help those in need. With a radiant smile, she explains that her healing is merely a token of gratitude for the village's hospitality during her sudden arrival. From the shadows, Clay watches her interact with the peasants. A cynical sneer crosses his mind as he notes how perfectly she plays the role of a compassionate saint. But his cynicism vanishes, replaced by genuine shock as he realizes who she actually is. He breathes her name in disbelief, Flora. Suddenly, the heroes are completely swarmed by the grateful townspeople. Men, women, and children gather around, their faces beaming with pure joy and newfound admiration. Observing the scene, a faint smile plays on his lips as he realizes that in this way, she hasn't changed at all. He finally approaches her, calling out her name and teasing her for making him wait. Flora turns in shock, stunned to see him demanding to know why she's here. She insists he needs rest, explaining that he's been pushing himself far too hard since his disappearance. She came out of pure concern for his health, but he immediately pivots to asking about his work. She brushes off his worries, claiming the church's authority remains intact regardless of who preaches. Clay is left flustered, realizing she traveled all this way just for him, only for her to tell him to be quiet. Leaning in close, her expression turns fierce. Flora declares she isn't just a shrine maiden and refuses to be treated like one. She commands him to listen to her as an equal, leaving Clay stunned into submission. He gestures toward the woods, asking if she'd like to head to her place. With a confident smirk, Flora agrees, promising to show him exactly what her borderland development truly entails. She leads him to a clearing where a sturdy house stands tall against the ancient trees. He stops dead in his tracks, staring at the unexpected structure, completely speechless. Approaching the home, Flora explains she built it for convenience, but suddenly pauses as she senses the air. While the village felt bleak, the magical energy radiating here is far more potent than she ever imagined. She remarks that only the truly powerful could even survive these lands. Eyeing the house, she notes with approval that Clay has masterfully stabilized the ambient mana in the area. He admits the construction was a hassle, but his goal was to create a sanctuary for Keza, Rita, and the other village children. Flora listens intently, her expression visibly softening. She reminds him of his own words, that developing the borderlands was about creating a peaceful home for everyone. Surprised by her memory, he quietly nods in agreement. Her tone turns serious as she points out the expertly crafted road they used to get here. It's a detail she notes that neither she, Yuka, nor Teritas would have ever considered. Puzzled, he asks for her point, but Flora presses on. She reveals she knows he investigated the skill seeds of every single person in the village. Leaning in with an intense gaze, she connects the dots. The road, the skill seeds, the meticulous planning. None of it is necessary just for simple land development. Her words hit him like a physical blow, leaving him wide-eyed and speechless as the weight of her accusation sinks in. He stays silent while Flora smiles, observing that he's clearly grown deeply attached to the villagers. His gaze drops as he quietly confesses that he is in fact attached. Looking up with a softened expression, he concedes that perhaps she's right. Gesturing toward the house, he explains it was only possible because of his disciple. Flora's voice rises in alarm, demanding to know who this disciple is and what will happen to them. The following day, inside the new home, Clay, Flora, Yuka, and Rita gather around the table. Flora cheerfully details her history with Clay, confirming she knew him back in the capital before formally introducing herself with a radiant smile. As Rita turns red, Flora suddenly seizes her and launches into a heated rant, declaring Clay a monster for not sending a single letter during his month-long stay in the capital. Clay catches the outburst and notes how quickly they're bonding, but Rita steps up to defend him, insisting he isn't actually that cold-hearted. In reality, Clay was drowning in writer's block, surrounded by piles of discarded drafts as he struggled to find the right words for Flora, eventually convincing himself she was too busy to care. Back in reality, Flora drops a bombshell by pointing out that he did manage to send a letter to Yuka, leaving Clay completely paralyzed with shock. He stammers in confusion, but Flora explains that a worried Yuka leaked the info, noting that Yuka is far busier than she is. Clay tries to play it off as a professional report, but as Rita watches in silence, Flora comments on their deep bond, a bond forged over 4 years of traveling together. The room goes quiet, as Alzam interjects with a sharp question, asking if it truly was just the two of them out there. The heavy question lingers, catching both Flora and Rita off guard as they stare back in surprise. Alzam maintains a piercing gaze while Clay looks utterly baffled, and Kaiser watches the drama unfold with intense curiosity. Flora breaks the tension with a gentle smile, clarifying that while it's a bit of a shame, they did indeed have another companion on their journey. Kiza is stunned, imagining Clay's life as a harem of noble beauties, while Yuka reveals that Flora used to affectionately call Clay Big Brother, earning him a playful pinch on the cheek. Rubbing his sore face, he adds that he even took her on as his personal disciple, while Flora watches him with a knowing, expectant look. The mood shifts as Altsam reveals his true goal, investigating the skill shield to understand the nature of the training, prompting Flora to offer her magical expertise to the cause. This offer clearly rattles Clay, who hesitates with a troubled expression as he weighs the dangerous implications. Flora clutches her head in pure disbelief, sweating profusely as she tries to process the insane reality of the situation. Meanwhile, the group receives their official new classifications. Alsham is a guardian warrior, Kaido a magic swordsman, and Rita a high-class magic toolmaster. Flora explodes, arguing that these rare skill shields only appear once in 100,000 people, making it impossible for three to exist in a single village. Clay counters with a theory that these shields are actually fueled by raw magic, looking troubled as he admits it's just a hypothesis. He explains that skill shields likely evolve based on the magic density of one's birthplace, suggesting the forest's mana is what granted the villagers these godlike abilities. Laura realizes that if this theory holds, Emil Village is a powder keg, a breeding ground for legendary skill shields that leaves the group speechless. Altsam's fear turns to fury as he grabs Clay, demanding to know why he kept the existence of these god-tier shields a secret until now. He warns that if the world learns of the village's power, the royal family or greedy nobles will descend to crush them or force a mass relocation. Clay offers a faint smile, relieved they finally grasped the gravity of the situation instead of just labeling him a pessimist. His face hardens once more as a new concern strikes him. He wonders if he should have ever taught them the secrets of magic tool creation. He turns his gaze toward Rita, who sits on the edge of her bed, hanging on his every word with intense focus. Clay declares her shield is far too powerful to ignore, revealing his plan to train her as a magic swordsman so she can master her true potential. Overwhelmed by the sudden attention, Rita's face flushes a deep red as she struggles to find her voice. In truth, she never asked for greatness. Her only desire is a quiet, peaceful life within the familiar walls of her village. Suddenly, a mysterious woman interjects, claiming it's an insult to her teachers to accept such elite training without a shred of ambition. She challenges Rita to stop searching for a grand dream and instead focus on becoming the person she truly wishes to be. The group gathers around the table, the air thick with tension as they debate the paths that will define their future. Though the path ahead feels alien to her, Rita steels her resolve, deciding that she cannot simply stand still. The confident woman offers a gentle reminder. This is just one possibility, and no experience gained will ever be truly wasted. Kaido reveals that his appraisal skill confirms her talent is far too vast to be limited to a simple appraiser's life. With her doubts finally crushed, a new fire ignites in Rita's eyes as she declares her intent to master magic tools. With the matter settled, Kaido turns his attention to Kiza and Alzam, catching them off guard by including them in the proposal. He explains that the path of a magic swordsman is incredibly versatile, and with their talent for shields, they could master the basics in no time. Alzam hesitates, stroking his chin as he wonders if it's even possible to begin a journey into magic at his age. Kaido shuts down his skepticism, insisting that true talent can be nurtured at any age as long as the will to learn remains. With the group assembled, Kaido stands, his voice booming with authority. He declares that training begins immediately within his newly constructed basement workshop. He sets a smooth wooden board onto the table, placing a finely crafted pen beside it with a satisfying click. Rita eyes the board with curiosity as Kaido reveals it's carved from treant wood, questioning if she recognizes the material. Kiza jumps in, identifying it as a tree-type monster, which Kaido confirms while noting the rarity of such a high-grade resource. This treant wood pulses with immense magical energy, typically far too volatile for a novice to control. However, its raw potency makes it the ultimate foundation for crafting elite combat-oriented magic tools. Altsum notes the importance of material compatibility, and Kaido agrees, stressing that mastering magic tools requires a deep understanding of every component's properties. He challenges them to take their studies seriously, comparing the theory of magic to the disciplined forms of elite swordsmanship. With the lessons set, he reveals their first objective: crafting an ignition tool, a vital device for both domestic life and survival on the road. He places a finished prototype on the table, commanding everyone to replicate the magic circle onto their boards with absolute precision. Lifting his pen, he explains that these circles aren't fueled by ink, but by the user's own mana. It requires a perfectly steady flow, neither too overwhelming nor too faint. Luckily, Kaido's custom-made pens automatically regulate the mana output, allowing them to focus entirely on the accuracy of their inscriptions. The students are amazed, with Aldzum noting that this invention bypasses the grueling mana manipulation that causes most Magic Academy students to quit in frustration. Moments later, Rita announces she's finished, and Kaido is stunned by her work. He observes that her magic circle is nearly flawless and ready for activation. To prove its success, he initiates a test, snapping a small magic stone into place beside the intricate inscription. The stone surges with energy, and a controlled flame erupts at the center of the board. Rita gasps, her eyes wide with shock as she stares at her creation. As she whispers in awe, Kaido beams, confirming that her natural talent has allowed her to succeed on her very first attempt. Her eyes sparkle with the reflection of the magical fire, a surge of overwhelming pride washing over her. Kaido pauses, watching her savor this heartfelt moment of genuine achievement. He explains that he'll handle the final cutting process, and when Rita shyly asks to keep the tool as a memento, he happily grants her request. Inspired, Rita suggests crafting tools for the entire village, a goal Kaido enthusiastically supports, while Kiza struggles to keep his own lines straight. The woman approaches Kaido with confidence, brandishing a successfully lit magic tool. She boldly declares her intent to become a master craftsman, viewing it as a necessary career pivot should she ever leave the church, a revelation that leaves Kido stunned. Days later, they walk together as she observes their progress. While Rita and Keys are still far from experts, their magical control is improving. In fact, nearly everyone has finally mastered drawing magic circles. She turns to him with a playful smile, admitting it's quite a sight to see him balancing his roles as both a teacher and a creator. Kaido merely glances away, maintaining his stoic reserve. Their path descends a grand, magically illuminated staircase where the soft glow of the lamps dances across the ancient stone. As they traverse the glowing grounds, she marvels at the sheer extravagance of using monster-repelling magic for simple streetlights. Kaido remains firm, stating his mission is to eliminate every possible threat to the village's safety. She acknowledges the utility of the lights, but argues that land development is the truly vital project. He confirms they are expanding their borders inch by inch, prompting her to ask what is really standing in his way. Her gaze sharpens as she offers a calculated guess, sensing she's uncovered the exact reason he's unable to proceed with the development. Kaido's attention shifts to his own arm, where a faint light pulses from a band on his wrist. He looks up, questioning if she's referring to the curse bound to his limb. He explains that while the curse is significant, the armlet can be removed. But then he turns the tables, asking if she is the legendary elf from the borderlands. Her composure shatters as she demands to know how he discovered her secret. He gestures to the ornate glowing band, identifying it as the armlet of the spirits. He reveals that the elf, Charlotte, warned him that an overwhelming number of spirits are congregating around his very soul. Because this accumulation is dangerous, Charlotte instructed him to use the armlet to disperse them. He confesses, however, that since he cannot see the spirits himself, he has no way of verifying the truth. Only one thing is certain: the armlet possesses a single absolute effect. All around him, the very air seems to shimmer with the presence of the countless unseen spirits he described. The woman processes this revelation, realizing she must confirm the truth for herself by speaking with Charlotte again. Meanwhile, Kaido is trapped in his own thoughts. He hoped to never see the elf again, but the cursed armlet leaves him with no choice. Standing resolute under the silver moonlight, he makes a final decision. He announces that tomorrow he will set out to locate the hidden elven settlement. This sudden declaration catches her off guard. "An adventure?" she exclaims with a determined grin, immediately insisting on joining him. Much to Kaido's absolute shock, he questions her motives, but she clarifies she didn't come all this way just to sit idle. With a slight blush, she admits she simply wants to be where the action is, looking at him earnestly as she asks for his approval. Kaido is left speechless, staring back at her as she waits with genuine, high-stakes anticipation. After a moment of hesitation, he finally relents and agrees to go together. She cheers in victory, and the two of them immediately set off into the dark woods. Their journey takes them deep into the heart of the borderlands until they finally arrive at Vedafons, the elven settlement built into the massive trunks of ancient, towering trees. High within a treetop spire, a dark-haired elven man gazes out the window. He turns to the figure behind him and speaks with chilling authority. "Charlotte, it is time for your punishment." Elder Melville of Vedafons faces Charlotte, his heart heavy with sorrow as he murmurs a quiet apology. Charlotte remains composed, addressing him simply as uncle. Standing before the elder, she hears his cold decree. If she seeks atonement, she must act now. He reminds her of her honorable duty, and she silently accepts her fate. She turns and traverses a massive tree branch, serving as a sky-high walkway. Melville calls out a somber farewell, while other elves offer hushed greetings as she passes. A young elf asks if she's on duty, while a dark-haired woman whispers for her to be careful. Charlotte offers a gentle, reassuring smile, thanking them for their concern. Her path leads deeper into the colossal boughs of the World Tree, a divine entity and the very foundation of the elven settlement. She gazes at the canopy, knowing the tree survives by consuming their magic in exchange for resources. But recently, the balance has been shattered. Suddenly, a monstrous red-scaled dragon with a terrifying third eye erupts through the foliage. This black dragon arrived a month ago, beginning its slow, systematic consumption of the World Tree itself. The resulting war has been a massacre, leaving warriors dead and homes in ruins. Their final, desperate gamble is to lure the beast out with a concentrated offering of magic. As the dragon lunges with a deafening roar, buds of pure mana sprout from the branches. The trap is set. From the distance, Elder Melville watches the nightmare unfold, his face a mask of grim determination. He screams for Charlotte to stop, but it's too late. She unleashes a blinding torrent of energy, commanding the foolish dragon to perish. However, the beast moves with impossible speed. It sidesteps the blast with contemptuous ease, looming over the terrified elf with a cruel, jagged grin. Her ultimate attack fails, and Charlotte collapses in despair. Just then, Kaito arrives on the scene, shouting her name in a panic. Consumed by terror and drowning in tears, She pleads for anyone, absolutely anyone, to save her from the brink. Meanwhile, miles away, the scene shifts to the imposing towers of the royal capital. Inside a grand office, Duke Conrad sits at his desk, obsessively scouring through official documents. He clicks his tongue in pure annoyance, irritated that the commoners appointed by the second prince are seeing such rapid success. Venting to a shadowed figure, he notes that hero Yuka's origins are under fire, while the church interferes with local judgments. The political landscape is shifting rapidly. His frustration boils over as he slams his fist onto the desk. He scoffs at the hero being treated like a fool, declaring they have no choice but to wait and watch. His rage transforms into a sinister grin as he decides to let the commoners enjoy their fleeting moment. With the influential nobility already backing the first prince, this mock battle will serve as the final nail in the coffin. He envisions the mock battle as a massive spectacle designed to lure in the masses, treating the event like a twisted festival. Turning to his shadowy associate, he demands an update on their sinister preparations. With a dark smirk, he asks if his conspirator successfully retrieved the item from the underground. From the darkness, a hooded figure reveals the powerful, chained torso of a captive, confirming their prize. The conspirator confirms their success as the various threads of the conspiracy begin to intertwine. While Prince Yuka plots and Charlotte reels from her trauma, Kaido stands ready, unaware that all paths lead to a single, devastating outcome. In a sun-drenched clearing, Kaido and Flora find their path blocked by a massive, pig-headed beast wielding a colossal axe. The creature towers over them, and Kaido shouts Flora's name in a desperate warning. Reacting instantly, she thrusts her hands forward to manifest a holy barrier. The monster's axe slams into the golden shield, and though the light cracks under the immense pressure, the defense holds firm. Seeing his opening, Kaido launches himself into the air with lethal precision. His blade flashes through the sky as he brings it down, carving a massive bloody gash across the beast's back. After the skirmish, the duo continues their trek through the borderlands. Though Flora notes they've seen plenty of monsters, but zero sign of the elves. Kaido, patting his stash of monster meat, remains optimistic that they'll find them soon. Flora admits their monster hunting has been lucrative, even praising the taste of the great orc they just took down. Kaido, however, worries that if they keep this up, they'll have a lifetime supply of nothing but one type of meat. Flora suggests donating the surplus to the people of Elmville Village, giving Kaido pause. He wonders if the locals would even want to eat exotic monster meat, questioning if it's even remotely palatable. He recalls Tarita mentioning that some regions actually feast on goblins, a thought that sends Flora into a spiral of pure horror. Her face pales as she screams in disbelief, demanding to know if he's lying. Kaido continues, explaining that while they smell terrible, the odor can be eliminated by soaking the meat in various spices. Flora is utterly aghast, insisting that the smell is the least of her concerns. Kaido mentions that prepared goblin meat is supposedly the perfect accompaniment to alcohol, but Flora points out that Tarita was eating that stuff all by himself. This realization hits Kaido like a sudden, sharp shock. Their conversation is cut short as a crushing presence descends upon the forest. Flora's voice is laced with concern as she calls out to Kaido, who looks up to see a massive aura radiating from the canopy. It's a dragon. A massive, three-eyed dragon known as Margape descends upon them, casting a terrifying shadow over the duo. Flora doesn't flinch, raising her hand to prepare a high-level defensive measure. The beast lands with a bone-shaking impact, yet Flora remains unfazed as she asks for Kaido's thoughts. He calmly observes that encountering a rare black dragon in the wild is quite the event. Instead of showing fear, Kaido stares at the beast and wonders aloud if dragon meat actually tastes good. Flora admits she has no idea, since she's never had the chance to dine on a black dragon before. The dragon suddenly launches back into the sky, leaving Kaido to wonder if it's fleeing or preparing an aerial assault. Flora declares that taking flight is a foolish move, proclaiming her barrier is absolutely unbreakable. A massive, shimmering dome of magic envelops them just as the dragon slams into the invisible wall. The beast recoils in shock from the impact, though Flora admits the creature is proving to be a bit of a nuisance. Stunned, but refusing to back down, the dragon hovers and unleashes a torrent of devastating black fire. As Flora identifies the dragon breath, Kaido's left eye begins to glow, activating his appraisal skill to analyze the incoming attack. His analysis uncovers the blast's true nature, a dark attribute magical assault far deadlier than any standard breath weapon. He realizes the dragon is actively refining its mana to maximize the devastation. A predatory grin spreads across his face as abyssal energy swirls around his maw. He muses on the sensation before invoking his signature ability, mimicry. He unhinges his jaw and unleashes a matching torrent of obsidian flames, perfectly replicating the black dragon's breath. The beast can only stare in sheer disbelief at the impossible sight. The twin streams of darkness collide in a cataclysmic explosion. The shockwave hurls the dragon backward, leaving its jaw scorched and smoking as a guttural cry of agony escapes its throat. The mangled dragon glares at Kaito, sensing a suffocating miasma radiating from him. It hisses that he must have slaughtered countless souls to possess such a cursed aura, just as a strange pattern begins to swirl within Kaito's eyes. Beside him, Clay steps forward, blade in hand. With a chilling smirk, he tells the beast its luck has run out, promising to devour it whole so it can finally rest in peace. Enraged by the threat, the three-eyed dragon lets out a thunderous roar and lunges, its massive jaws snapping wide. Clay holds his ground, sword raised to meet the charge, while Kaito watches the spectacle unfold. The creature's lunge suddenly falters, and with a ground-shaking crash, its colossal frame collapses. As dust and smoke billow from the impact, Kaito stands alone before the fallen titan. Moments later, Flora approaches Kaito with a warm smile. Her voice is gentle as she praises his efforts, offering a simple, "Good work." He looks up, reflecting on the chaos. He admits that while she was countering the Black Dragon's assault, she had also erected a massive, high-tier barrier, a feat he confesses even his mimicry cannot replicate. Flora's pride beams through her smile. She remarks that such power is only natural for the Saintess, admitting she's captivated by the technique every time she weaves it. As they sit by a crackling fire roasting dragon meat, she eagerly points at a skewer. She asks which part he thinks tastes best, leaving Kaito slightly bemused by how easily they bond over a meal. The small campfire casts a warm glow over the pair. It's a stark, peaceful contrast to the massive, shadowy corpse of the dragon lying just beyond their camp. She takes a massive bite, her face lighting up with pure ecstasy. She declares it's the finest dragon meat she's ever tasted. Her delight's so intense that Kaito questions if it's truly that delicious. Kaito explains that while the meat has restorative properties, it's no substitute for a real meal. He suggests they track down the elves, proposing a forest trek to shake off the stagnation of being cooped up, and Flora readily agrees. Their journey leads them to the base of a legendary tree, so massive an entire civilization thrives within its trunk and branches. This is the elven sanctuary of Vedaphons. Inside the village, Charlotte stands among her people, a growing sense of dread washing over her. She finds it ominous that the black dragon hasn't returned as expected. The elven elder, Melville, asks for her insight. Charlotte confirms her fears regarding the dragon's disappearance just as a young elf named Zaire rushes toward them, shouting for their attention. Melville demands an explanation for the panic. Breathlessly, Zaire reports that 2 humans have arrived at the settlement, a claim the elder immediately scoffs at as pure nonsense. He demands to know how mere humans could bypass the phantom barrier guarding their home. Zaire clarifies that one of them wears the bracelet of spirit subjugation, and an artifact Charlotte herself once bestowed upon a stranger. The mention of the bracelet triggers a sudden realization in Charlotte. A single name flashes through her mind: Claire. Understanding dawns on Melville as well. He urges Charlotte to meet them, promising to guard the world tree in her absence. She thanks him, and Zaire quickly offers to guide her to the entrance. Guided by the young elf, Charlotte rushes toward the village entrance where Kaido and Flora await her arrival. As she approaches, Kaido spots her and raises a hand in a cheerful greeting. Beside him, Flora watches the reunion with a look of quiet surprise. Flora steps forward with a warm smile, introducing herself as a priestess of the Creation Church and a friend of Clay. Charlotte's gaze shifts back to Kaido, questioning if this is truly his companion. Her attention shifts to a more pressing matter. She asks how they entered the village, explaining that a phantom barrier should have blocked any intruders. He casually replies that while he noticed a settlement, he simply analyzed the barrier's structure and broke through it. Flora stares at him, stunned by his nonchalant confession. She changes the subject, mentioning they were about to camp in the forest for the night. Seizing the moment, Flora asks if they can stay in the settlement, but Charlotte is left speechless. She finally stammers that staying there is impossible. A taken-back Flora asks if there isn't even a spare treehouse, while Kaido wonders why Charlotte is acting so formal. Her expression turns grave as she gestures toward a massive tree in the distance. She explains that a great black dragon has claimed its summit, keeping the entire area in a state of constant peril. This is why they cannot allow humans to stay. Kaido peers toward the distant tree, questioning the dragon's presence since he doesn't see anything there right now. Zaira provides the answer, explaining that while the dragon flew off a short while ago, it always returns to its perch. With a grim expression, she adds that the beast devours the world tree every single day. It has no intention of leaving until the tree has completely withered away. Her dire words leave Kaido and Flora stunned. Kaido can only manage a confused sound in response. As he processes the news, Flora leans in with a sly smile. Realization dawns on her as she asks if he's thinking exactly what she's thinking. He stammers, trying to find the right words, but Charlotte interrupts. She looks at him expectantly and asks about the black dragon's fate. Kaido trails off, struggling to explain his actions. He finally announces that they defeated it. With a confident smile, he leaves Charlotte, Zaire, and Flora utterly stunned. Disbelieving, Charlotte asks if he truly managed to slay the beast. The confirmation only deepens Charlotte's shock. She recoils in horror, asking if he actually ate it. Flora beams with excitement, confirming that the proof of his victory is currently digesting in his stomach. The colossal body of the defeated dragon lies motionless, its immense form dwarfing the gathering crowd of elves. A heavy silence hangs in the air as the beast draws its final, shuddering breath. At the forest's edge, the elven leaders watch in disbelief. Elder Melville confirms it is indeed the Black Dragon, wondering how 2 humans could have possibly accomplished such a feat. His companions, Charlotte and Zaire, stand frozen in disbelief, their eyes wide with awe as they gaze upon the massive fallen beast. Her voice trembling, Charlotte begs for confirmation, asking if the nightmare of the Black Dragon is truly over, leaving Kaido flustered by her raw emotion. Tears of pure relief stream down her face as she realizes their era of despair has finally ended, and the crushing weight of fear begins to evaporate. The other young elves, including Zaya, remain paralyzed, their minds struggling to grasp the reality of their sudden salvation. That initial shock quickly transforms into a tidal wave of emotion as years of collective suffering are finally washed away by their tears. Suddenly, a thunderous cheer erupts from the elven people, their voices rising in a triumphant roar to celebrate their freedom from the dragon's tyranny. Amidst the chaos, a bewildered Kaido turns to Flora, wondering if defeating what he calls black trash was actually that big of a deal. Flora explains that a black dragon is no ordinary monster. Its power rivals the Demon King's top generals, and Kaido finally realizes the sheer magnitude of his feat. They are soon met by the elven elder, Melville of the Vetafon's tribe, who graciously invites the heroes back to his home to rest. He leads them to a magnificent dwelling woven into the very heart of the forest, glowing with a soft, ethereal light. Inside, Charlotte and the elder bow in deep respect, as Melville offers his heartfelt gratitude for saving their settlement and the world tree itself from total annihilation. Taken aback by the formality, Kaido stammers that there's no need for thanks, claiming he simply wanted to take the dragon down. Melville remains solemn, insisting that while Kaido might see it as a small task, for the elves, this salvation is a monumental gift that deserves a reward. He asks the heroes what they desire most, causing Kaido to pause and carefully weigh the endless possibilities. His contemplation ends with a look of pure determination as he makes a single, shocking request: permission to develop the borderlands. The request leaves the elves completely perplexed, and seeing their confusion, Kaido quickly offers to drop the subject if it's too much. After a moment, Melville concedes it's a sound idea, though he's confused why a warrior of Kaido's godlike strength would feel the need to protect such an area. He reveals the ancient legend of the Vetafon Elves, a sacred mission from the gods to protect the human realm from the horrors lurking within the borderlands. Flora questions this logic, pointing out that humans are already being pushed into these lands, making the elven protection seem peculiar, as Kaido offers a sheepish apology. The elder clarifies that his magic was meant to keep Kaido away from danger, but since he's slain the Black Dragon, he's earned the right to develop the land as he sees fit. Kaido stands stunned. Realizing this is their way of showing gratitude, he resolves to accept the gift as a testament to their unwavering trust. He voices his thanks, while Flora notes that he can finally push forward with his plans without any lingering doubts. She quietly ponders the situation, finding it surreal that elves from the Sacred Tree Kingdom would protect humanity. After all, she's only ever heard tales of them despising humans. Her curiosity piqued, she asks Melville about the difference between the World Tree and their Sacred Tree. He explains they are one and the same. The Sacred Tree is merely a sapling grown from a branch of the Great World Tree. A realization hits her. If they're the same, she wonders if its leaves and fruit can be harvested, and if they'd be worth a fortune. The elder confirms her suspicions and offers her a share. Flora's eyes widen with greed as she lets out an excited shout, completely startling Kaido. With a knowing smirk, Melville produces an intricate vial. He announces he's gifting them something even rarer, a secret elven medicine. He presents the vial to Kaido, explaining that this medicine is a life crystal from the World Tree. He offers it as a tribute, a gift for saving their entire future. Kaido hesitates, wondering if he can truly accept such a priceless treasure. Melville reassures him, explaining that as long as they pray to the World Tree, the medicine can be remade. He urges Kaido to take it and promises to assist in developing the borderlands. Standing beside Charlotte, Melville makes a formal vow. He declares that the Vedaphon elves will cooperate with Lord Claire's efforts, telling Kaido to call upon them whenever he needs aid. Kaido stares back in disbelief, overwhelmed by gratitude as a single bead of sweat rolls down his temple. His hands tremble as they close around the crystal, and he manages to whisper a word of thanks. With the pact sealed, a massive celebration erupts. Zaire lets out a thunderous cheer, raising his mug high among the rowdy elves. The feast rages on, with tables overflowing with food and drink. Kaido sits among the elves, sharing drinks and stories into the night. He watches the festivities with a contented smile, genuinely happy to be part of this new world. Days later, in an Emil village tavern, a man recounts a terrifying tale. He describes being cornered by 5 goblins, certain his life was over. He continues the story with dramatic flair, explaining how a sudden bolt of lightning erupted from behind him, incinerating the goblins in a single flash. The storyteller finishes in awe. When he turned to see his savior, he found the elf Charlotte standing there, with Kaido right behind her. As the duo walks through the village, Kaido notes the positive changes. The elves are finally entering the borderlands, and reports say they're even protecting the villagers. Peace has finally arrived. She turns to him with a radiant smile, stating that with the elf crisis resolved, development can finally resume. She asks how she can help, leaving Kaido stunned. Doesn't she plan on going home? She explains that Kaido's presence makes this place a sanctuary, a stark contrast to her previous desire for isolation in the borderlands. Leaning against his shoulder, she confesses her love for Emil Village. Here, unlike the capital, she finally feels respected and equal. Suddenly, her mood shifts as she remembers Yuka's upcoming mock battle, realizing a temporary return to the capital is now inevitable. Kato's expression darkens, knowing Duke Conrad is merely using Yuka as a sacrificial lamb to entertain a crowd hungry for her defeat. Sensing his hesitation, Charlotte offers him an out, but Kato remains silent, dreading the thought of watching his friend suffer in the ring. With newfound resolve, Kaito declares he's going. A man must witness his friend's moment of valor, no matter the cost. The news hits Rita like a lightning bolt, her eyes widening as she questions their sudden departure for the capital. Kaito explains the situation, framing the trip as a rare chance to support a friend during a massive festival-like event. Rita's gaze turns wistful as she admits her own longing to see the capital again, a place lost to her childhood memories. Charlotte's eyes sparkle with excitement as she immediately recruits Glans, the driver, to bring Rita along for the ride. Still hesitant, Rita worries about the astronomical travel costs, but Glans shuts her down with a warm, generous smile. He suggests she craft magic tools to sell upon arrival, turning the journey into a profitable venture that leaves Rita speechless. Charlotte doubles down, promising to handle the lodging while Kaito takes charge of securing the horses for their trek. She pulls Rita into a hug, thrilled to have a female companion for the trip, and a flustered Rita finally accepts the generous offer. However, a shadow of doubt crosses Rita's face as she realizes her brother Kiza will be absolutely consumed by jealousy. Charlotte agrees it's a strong possibility, prompting Kaito to suggest the unthinkable, bringing Kiza along with them. Right on cue, Kiza bursts out of his house like a cannonball, screaming at the top of his lungs that he's coming too. Kaito barely manages to restrain the frantic boy, who thrashes wildly while begging not to be left behind in the dust. Kiza clings to Kaito's leg, hailing him as the ultimate big brother, while Kaito mentally calculates the skyrocketing costs of this growing party. To top it all off, his father Alzam sighs, admitting that even he feels the itch to visit the capital once more. He explains his reasoning to Clay, stating that while the elves are cooperating, he cannot leave the village defenseless. Monster activity in the nearby forest is surging, a troubling development he blames on the rampaging Black Dragon. Protecting his people remains his ultimate priority. He concludes that he won't be able to depart for some time. Kaido listens intently, acknowledging the weight of the man's duties. His serious demeanor softens as Alton offers a smile, telling Clay to enjoy the trip on his behalf while eagerly anticipating whatever souvenirs they might bring back. However, his expression turns grave once more as he poses a crucial question to Clay. He asks if it's truly wise to leave Charlotte behind, fearing the elf girl might be ostracized by her people if she isn't seen with them. A man urges him to ask her directly, warning that silence will only lead to future regret. As Clay processes the advice, the full travel party, Kaido, Kaiser, Rita, and Charlotte, briefly assembles. The conversation ends, and the focus shifts to the Elven settlement, a breathtaking village of graceful structures woven into colossal, ancient trees. There, Charlotte delivers her answer with a gentle smile. Without hesitation, she's all in. Her immediate acceptance catches Clay completely off guard. He stands stunned, realizing his fears of rejection were baseless and that Alizum's warning was spot on. He watches in surprise as Charlotte asks if she may officially join the group. Clay turns to the elf elder, Melville, who stands nearby with Sire. Melville explains he has no objections, as he has his own business to attend to in the capital. With a weary but grateful expression, Melville admits he was dreading the solo trek and welcomes the company. Zaire enthusiastically agrees, and Clay realizes their party has suddenly swelled to 6 members. This will be no ordinary journey. 1 week later, preparations are finalized. From a rooftop, a voice observes that an incredible powerhouse of a group has been assembled for the trek to the capital. The full party stands ready to depart. Clay, the true hero, leads the way, flanked by Rita the Saint and Charlotte the Elf. Behind them follow Kaiser, the high-ranked magic tool user, Zia, the magic swordsman, and Melville the Elf Elder. With a confident grin, Clay announces their destination, the capital.